Good morning, everybody. How's it going? It's Paul with reporting live from my sofa. Now, today we're going to be talking about the Brendt Christensen trial. We're going to be reviewing day one of the trial. And what I'm going to do with this is just go through an article of a reporter that went through and made notes, whatever. This is a federal death penalty case, so there's no cameras or anything like that allowed in the courtroom. But I just want to go through, this is a very heinous crime that he did. It's going to be a very heinous trial, most likely. So we're just going to go through, do some commentary, and go over stuff, and that's it. So, without any more time being wasted, let's get into it. Okay, so now as I said, this is the case of Brendt Christensen, accused of murdering Yingying Zhang. I hope I'm saying her name right. I apologize if I'm butchering that. Now, I'm going to be reviewing, again, this is a federal death penalty case, so there's no cameras or anything like that allowed in the courtroom. So reporters are basically taking notes and things of that nature. So I'm just going to be reviewing some of these notes here that were made, making some commentary, and kind of just discovering this along with y'all at the same time. Let's get into it. So now, when the court opened up, it began right off with the judge addressing a motion to continue filed by the defense, which I guess they call a Hail Mary pitch for them to delay the trial. Now, they say it's because new evidence had been uncovered after Zhang's estate filed a new civil lawsuit against Christensen and two UI counselors. UI meaning University of Illinois. That's where he was a student. They want the trial to be postponed until they get a chance to review that new evidence. And the judge denied this request. He basically was like, look, there's an extensive history of preparation for this, and it's going to be too difficult to disrupt the schedule of witnesses. You know, they've already prepared all this. You know, we can't do this. So everybody gets sworn in and given their instructions. Now, the government makes the opening statements, and basically the first words out of their mouth, let's go ahead and get the attorneys' names first. Assistant U.S. Attorney Eugene Miller goes first. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he begins. He kidnapped her, he murdered her, he covered up this crime. So, I mean, just bam, you know, no getting around it. Now, he goes in and shows pictures of Zhang and tells about her trip from China to the United States. She came here to study crop science. It was her first time outside China. I mean, and y'all, the pictures, they are just hard. She looks like such a sweet young lady. I mean, and isn't that always the case with this, where it's just like, my God, it's awful. Now, she had a boyfriend, she was living in an apartment, and she had actually applied to, like, go to a different apartment, and apparently she had an appointment to meet with the manager later, and she didn't have a car, so she had to take the bus. And she texted the manager. She apparently was going to be late for this meeting, so I'm sure she was stressed. She sounds like a very on top of it kind of a girl, and so I'm sure she was stressed. She missed her connecting bus, and then he begins, you know, going into Christensen, and this is the attorney going into this, and he says he would be the last person to see her alive. And so now he calls Christensen highly intelligent, and that's how he describes his education as well. He says that Brendt developed an interest in serial killers back in December of 2016, and he downloaded photographs of women in bondage and things of this nature. And so this is where you kind of see this obsession going on. Now, this is interesting. So Miller says Christensen ordered a 6-foot-long duffel bag, and that his wife had begun dating another man just as he started dating another woman. So remember how I said in the overview video where they had like this open relationship? So, you know, this was, you know, and to each their own or whatever. But so that's going on. So they're kind of doing their own little thing or whatever. Now, during conversations with counselors at the University of Illinois, Miller tells the jury that Christensen admitted having a fascination about serial killers. So, pardon me. So remember earlier where the parents are suing Christensen and the counselors at the University of Illinois? It sounds like again, it's one of these situations where maybe this should be, you know, a red flag, you know, I don't know. So apparently it's looking like they dropped the ball on things, and then something horrible happened. So let's continue. Now this is a quote that Miller says Christian said. "I don't care how I am remembered, just that I am," Miller says that Christensen said. "Fading into nothingness is not an option. I would rather destroy humanity." Very nice indeed. So this is what we're dealing with. And side note here, I'm kind of glad they're not allowing this to be videotaped, because clearly this guy gets off on this attention. I mean, this is what he wanted and he's getting it. And I hope that they make it so he can never write a book, never do an interview, never do any of this stuff. There's been some cases, and I don't know if y'all are familiar. Okay, we're going to take a side note here. If you're familiar with the movie Boys Don't Cry, the true story behind that, they basically made it so those guys, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I could be, but I'm pretty sure this is the case, so that those guys could never do anything, could never do interviews, could never make a dime in any way possible, or anyone with them could. And it's kind of why you never really heard much about it. I hope they do that to him. And again, if I'm wrong about that Boys Don't Cry thing, just let me know in the comment section. Now remember, this, what I'm reading is notes, so that's why some of them are jumbled, where it sounds like, he's going from one thing to the next, because this guy's just kind of making notes as he goes. Let's see. So the opening statements continue. He says that Christensen ordered a second duffel bag, which was delivered on June 6th. Then Miller says he committed his crime during a weekend when his wife and her new boyfriend were on a trip to Wisconsin Dells. So, okay, so wife's gone. I don't know if him and his wife are living together or what, but she's gone, so they, this is when this happens. Miller says Christensen bought a bottle of rum, shaved his facial hair, then drove across town looking for a victim. And this is where you start, when you begin to piece these together and you hear her story. Oh, I'm late for the bus, and da-da. And, this beautiful young lady visiting here from China, so accomplished. And you just, God, if you could just go back and be like, don't go. You know what I mean? So, I'm sorry, let's continue. Miller says Christensen eventually encountered a woman, told her he was an undercover cop, asking the woman to get in the car so he could ask her some questions. That woman did not comply, and she called the police and posted a warning on Facebook. You go, girl. I mean, and that's what needs to happen, because I'm just like this. I'm like, was he wearing a cop? I'm an undercover cop, really? I mean, you know what I mean? I'm just like, what are you thinking? It just blows my mind. And thank God this young lady, I mean, A, didn't get in the car with him, she'd be dead. B, she called the police. She did what she was supposed to. She put a thing on Facebook. Isn't this reminiscent of Bundy? And I'm actually surprised he didn't do something like Bundy, of just doing the arm cast or whatever. Anyways, let's keep going. Now, Miller says Brent and his girlfriend texted each other about murder. Now, which I find interesting. And that's just all it says, and then it goes on to the next thing. So with this, I'm just like, well, what does it mean? Is it about the murder? It doesn't say that. Or is it just about murder? Because, okay, think about our community, how we talk about true crime and stuff like that. I mean, somebody could look and take things in context and be like, well, these people are really obsessed with this. But I guess it depends on what they're talking about. So that line kills me. I really want to know more about that. But anyways, maybe it'll tell us later. Miller says when Yingying Zhang got into the car, he drove toward basically the apartment. He disabled her phone, bound her hands, took her to his apartment, raped and assaulted her. Her blood rained down the wall, Miller said. Remember, Miller's the U.S. attorney. Miller says that Christensen carried her to his bathtub, hit her on the head with a Louisville Slugger bat as hard as he could, then stabbed her in the neck and cut off her head. I mean, y'all, this is a horrible human being. I mean, I can't, it's even more train wrecking because of looking at her pictures, and I'm like, that poor girl. And the fact that her parents have to hear this. I mean, what a horrible human being. Anyways. Okay, Miller says Christensen disposed of her clothes, backpack, and iPhone, but he kept his mattress and baseball bat because that was a smart move. Miller says he brought Drano and Swiffer pads and started cleaning. I mean, this is what gets me, and again, thank God that they're stupid, because I'm just like, okay, so you got rid of her clothes, the backpack, the iPhone, you kept your bloody mattress and the crime and the weapon, but you got some Swiffer pads and Drano? I mean, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Anyways. But he says the defendant failed to clean under the carpet or behind the baseboard. I mean, honestly, when you've done something this heinous, just burn the whole place down. That's what you're going to have to do to get rid of it. I mean, there's just no coming back from that. With the technology that we have these days, I'm like, what is he thinking? Okay, so then the search happens. They're looking for a car. He drove a black Saturn Astra. The police find it. They find like 18, and they start going and interviewing all the owners. And they say that, so once they got to Christensen, he's told the FBI that he slept and played video games all day long. He allowed the agents to search his apartment and the Astra, his car. And he says, Miller says the FBI found that he searched for information in iPhone tracking, or maybe that's supposed to say on iPhone tracking, and that he also cleaned his apartment and put in a maintenance request to have the bathroom treated for mold, because that's the first thing you do after you slaughter someone in there. I'm just like, you know, my God, this guy, I mean, this is, and again, I don't think he's crazy, but I think he's crazy. I don't think he's insane to get off of this case, but yeah, obviously I'm like, this guy's crazy. So furthermore, FBI agents had identified Christensen's Astra by a damaged hubcap and its sunroof. Miller says the FBI seized the Astra, they searched it, he went to the FBI office to talk to him. And during the interview, Miller says that he told them he'd seen videos of the Astra driving around. A detective told Christensen that they knew he picked up Zhang, and then Christensen kind of acted totally confused, and he was like, oh yeah, I do remember giving her a ride, but I let her out. And I'm just like, go ahead, just go ahead and lock him up. Go ahead and lock him up. I mean, honestly, you know, I mean, the whole thing from top to bottom is just, and again, thank God it's that way so that we're not sitting here, you know, like in a doulo situation of like, where's the body and where's this? I mean, thank God this guy was just pretty easy to catch. Okay, so the opening statements continue. Let's see. They go in, they describe how they searched the apartment at the crime scene. They found 3 red stains on the mattress. Of course they did. A fluorescent substance revealed a stain on the baseball bat. And of course it did. Miller says Christensen's wife, Michelle, agreed to an interview with the FBI while Brendt was put under 24-hour surveillance. I'm just kind of, I mean, see, and again, we don't know the times and stuff like that. These are just notes. So I'm like, wait, was he out? Did they let him leave that FBI office? Miller says Christensen told the FBI he used the duffel bag to take a cat treat to his girlfriend. However, Miller says the evidence shows she never saw it. I mean, again, you used the duffel bag to carry a cat tray. Okay. I mean, I'm thinking of a cat tree. I'm like, why would you put it in a duffel bag? You know what I mean? Like, why would you even do that? Then Miller goes into telling the jury the story about how Christensen and his girlfriend attended Zhang's memorial walk. And this is what I was saying either earlier in this video or the video before, where they went to this and, you know, he knows he killed her. And so this is one of the quotes that he says. Oh my gosh. I just want to see how many people are here, Miller says, that Christensen said. They're here for me. I mean, just, ugh. Then Miller says that Christensen described in detail how he did it. I'm apparently very good at this, he says, Christensen told his girlfriend, going on to say Yingying Zhang was his 13th victim. Miller does point out that the FBI hasn't seen any other evidence that he had 12 victims, though. They did bring in cadaver dogs to his apartment. They seized a tray under the sink and seized the mattress. Of course they did. They found a dark stain under the carpet and found DNA on all of those items that were identified as Zhang's. Of course they did. You will hear, in the defendant's own words, in awful detail, Miller tells the jury as he asks them to return a guilty verdict. Miller takes a seat, and now the defense's time is to speak. The federal defendant makes opening statements. Now, the assistant federal defender is George Tassif, and he addresses the jury. And, of course, you know, we meet today under the most tragic circumstances. And then he says he's about to tell them something shocking. Brendt Christensen is responsible for the death of Yingying Zhang, Tassif says. Brendt Christensen killed Yingying Zhang, and nothing that we say or do during this phase of the trial will be an attempt to sidestep or deny that Brendt Christensen is responsible for her death. Case closed, done, take him out back, send the jury home, as far as I'm concerned. So now, if you remember, he pleaded not guilty to the original charges that he had come up with. And so this was kind of like a, clutch my pearls, he has gone against his word. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is one of those type situations. So I think it's probably, I mean, what else are you going to do at this point? I mean, anything else that they do besides admitting it would make them look stupid. I mean, let's be honest. He already is viewed as a horrible monster. So let's just go ahead. All they're concerned about is not getting the death penalty. With these cases like this and with Tim Jones Jr. and all that, they're just trying to keep them off the death penalty at this point. That's all. Let's continue. So Tassif addresses the question of why Then there's even a trial. Apparently jurors were trying to get up and walk out. I'm just joking, they weren't doing that. He says this because Brendt is on trial for his life as he faces the death penalty. I like how they become so, like, we need to save his life all of a sudden. After you've just described him taking this young lady and putting her head over a bathtub and hitting it with a Louisville slugger and beheading her. I mean, why? He takes issues with some of the facts of the case the government will present and refers to the recorded conversation Miller just told them about. Some of the things you're going to hear Brendt say are shocking and horrible, he says. Tassif says the evidence will show that Christensen's 13 victims claims are false. He tells the jury the FBI aggressively investigated the claim but found nothing to prove there are any other victims. There doesn't need to be any other victims. This one's just enough. Tassif says Christensen was entered a downward spiral in his life. He visited a counseling service to overcome his substance abuse issues, including his habits of binge drinking and combining alcohol with medications. And clearly that therapy didn't take. Okay. And again, they're trying to throw this stuff out about substance abuse. I get so tired of people trying to throw, and I'm not saying anything. I have had my own issues with that in the past. I'm not trying to say anything about that, but it's when people use an excuse. A lot of people do stuff like that, and they don't go out and behead people. You know what I mean? And so this whole thing that we keep seeing about, mental health shaming, substance abuse shaming, and trying to associate it with, well, they couldn't help it. They couldn't help but behead somebody. They were taking Zoloft. I'm just like, no, don't even come at me with that. Quit putting that in that category. It's just ridiculous. And there's plenty of people that do that are absolutely not going to go out there and behead a complete stranger. It's just, I'm so tired of it. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. So Tassif says that Christensen's state of mind was not in a good place and he was having dark thoughts. Really? That's shocking to know. Tassif says that Christensen was 28 years old in 2017, mentions his father Mike and his mother Ellen. He says he graduated with a double major in math and physics and was a doctoral candidate. But things began falling apart. You don't say. Tassif says Christensen developed issues with sleeping and depression. Here we go. Everything went downhill, says Tassif, pointing out Brendt earned straight F's in the fall of 2016 semester. His wife Michelle became unhappy. She asked Brendt for a divorce in March 2017. As Tassif begins talking about Michelle, Christensen, now this is like a side note, Tassif begins talking about Michelle, Christensen, sitting in the courtroom, appears to bury his head in his hand and wipe tears away from his eyes. Okay. Look at the similarities that we see with these people between, I'm thinking of Tim Jones Jr. and this right now. It's very interesting. Tassif recounts how Christensen went into counseling, having thoughts of self-harm and considering himself a failure. How far along are your plans? Tassif says a counselor asked Christensen. Pretty far along, he says, Brendt replied. I don't know what plans he's talking about. Tassif says the counselor recommended him go to Rosecrans and Champaign for treatment. I've just butchered that word. I apologize. Tassif said Christensen met his girlfriend Tara on OkCupid, and within a week they formed the beginning of a relationship. Okay, y'all. OkCupid, I think we can all relate here. Be careful out there. They entered into an arrangement where Brendt was dominant and Tara was submissive. Very interesting. Very interesting that she then took him down with the FBI. Just all these little traits. Anyways, the weekend Zhang went missing. Tassif says Michelle went away with her boyfriend, staying at the same resort in Wisconsin Dells that Brendt and she stayed at during their honeymoon. Bitter party of one. Why would you do that? Anyways, Tassif says Brendt also got a text from Tara saying she was having sex with another man. Now, this is where the defense is going with this, and I am kind of like, well, what a tangled web we weave. This is just like, well, this just got to him. So, having hit rock bottom, Tassif says Christensen goes to Schnucks, bought the largest bottle of cheap rum, and walks out the door just before 8 a.m. He starts drinking and driving around. At around 2:10, he does the unthinkable. Tassif says he takes her to his apartment. He kills her. Tassif says his team will cast doubt on the truth of what Christensen says in the recordings. This is a tragedy of immense proportions. Tassif says, keep your heart and mind open. The opening statements are done, and now it is time for trial. So we're going to pause this here at just opening statements and make this video day one opening statements or whatever. Again, I think it's very, very interesting to see in this how, with the mindset of these people, the defense, obviously, I get this, it's the defense's job to try and keep his client from being, you know, killed, basically. But, and as I said, and I get a little like all up in it about the mental health and the substance abuse, because I just feel like there's plenty of people that are out there with that, and it's not this huge thing where they go out and kill people. And I get that you have to throw anything at the wall that sticks, but I just feel like, no, these people, this guy knew what he was doing. I don't care if you got, you know, blackout drunk. People don't go out and just murder people like this. I'm sorry. It's something that's already within there. And this whole contorted relationship situation that he's in, I mean, obviously he's a grown man. He chose to be in that. Now, he might not have liked it. You know, we don't know if it was Michelle wanting the open relationship or him or whatever. Yeah, but clearly, I mean, to me, the evidence points to there's something going on with that. I mean, you have all these women in your life and they're all sleeping with other guys. You know what I mean? I get to each their own, that's some people's thing, but it sounds like maybe there could have been, where I'm trying to go with that is maybe there was some anger that he had that was taken out. Almost like how Bundy had that anger towards Stephanie, and so all his victims look like Stephanie. I almost feel like maybe they're trying to allude to something like that here. We might see this come out in the testimony. So anyways, we're going to end this here, and we are going to continue on. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.